Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Maddie B. It's that time of year. I've been waiting. I can't even express in words how I felt about not having football this past weekend, man. Because you have like baseball going on, and they're getting close to the trade deadline, which we're going to talk about later in the show. But it's like, all I want is like a football game on. Because like even preseason now, it's like summer, you like to be outside, you can do some yard work or whatever. Even though it doesn't really matter, you can still put on the game and kind of listen to it. And I'm not the type of guy that goes back and like watches or listens to a past game. And I'm like, let's get it rolling. The Hall of Fame game's coming up. We're finally back. And before we talk about that, you guys don't start. When does your training camp start back up?
Heat camp is going to officially start on Monday, but tomorrow we have media days. So rolling my crew out to Belwood-Annis, and we're going to look our best for the media.
So you have the media days before practice starts?
Yep.
How do you give your prediction on the year then?
You know you're going to be good. You know. Because
I remember doing media days after our first week of camp because we were in our uniforms and stuff for pictures.
Well, we gotta. Typically, I just take my seniors, so they're guys who've been in the program. I know they're not gonna just quit after talking to the press. Like, we're gonna have a good team and then quit during camp.
So this is a random thought, but do you guys do like your own media on social media? Like do player profiles on Instagram or anything?
It's a big negative.
Why not? You could put yourself out there.
I could. Maybe I should have you do that for me.
Yeah, you should do that. Does Claysburg have one? You can do like your own coaching thing where don't they do like short little videos like Snapchat or TikTok or something now? You can like talk about it like, yeah, that was a great game. We executed the game plan well. Just be real generic with it, like all coaches are. Except for Mike Leach, my man.
Just turn it into like Bill Belichick style. Like, we're doing great. We need to fix everything. We're the worst.
I'm glad you were talking about this because I have a note here. Last week after the show, I was thinking about it, and I thought that we should make a bet on the year based on how many passing plays you run. Right? But that's all. That was the last thought that I had. I must have went and did something after the show, so I never finished what I was thinking of. So would you be up? Would you be up for that? Like you tell me like every year, like, hey, I'm going to pass more, and then if I see the stat line and it says only 5 passes, I'm going to be like, whoa. Like, what would be a good average? 20 passes? How many plays do you run a game?
I would say probably we're in the 45, 50 play range.
So 20 would be a good number, right? Less than half.
Well, 20 would be a lot.
Says who? Pat Narduzzi might think that that's a lot. But I'm saying, like, that's a decent amount for, like, if you're trying to mix in and play, like, 50-50 passing.
It is, but I think there's more to it than just saying I'm going. And Mike Leach is the one that really put a note on it. It's not so much throwing X number of times. It's how many touches do your skill guys get. If you're able to spread the ball around to more players and have them do more stuff with it, I think it makes it more difficult to defend. So like if you're only throwing to one receiver, then it becomes like this match of they're just going to start shadowing that guy, and then you're screwed.
Are you saying you're only coaching up one receiver? Because wouldn't it be the coach's job to spread the ball around? It's not like you have Randy Moss on your team. And if you did, you could just throw it up to him, right?
Well,
I'm asking the hard questions because I forgot to write down what I was actually thinking, so I don't.
so we're just gonna spitball hot questions.
Well, my thing was like, all right, well, if you don't get 20 for every one that you're short on, maybe you should like record yourself running 50-yard sprints or something. Like you only throw 12 passes you owe us, or even 100-yard sprints. Like what should we do here?
Well, see, and this is one of the ways that I look at it too, is that there's opportunities to throw the ball almost on every single play that we have, unless I give a hard kill call the quarterback at any point can pull it and throw it, because to me, I think it's insane that I'm going to call a play and then you're just locked in, because what I see from the sidelines and what a quarterback's going to see during the game are two completely different things. And I think, like, I teach my quarterbacks from day one that we're looking on the perimeter, because the teams that play us typically play some form of an 8-man box, whether they have 4 down or 3 down, like whatever they do, there's always 8 guys in the box typically, which should open things up in the passing game. But when you make some of our run calls where we have passes and screens built into them, that if the quarterback likes it, he can pull it and fire.
And I'm just saying that I want to see those actually happen.
I want to see it happen too.
So, because I was going to say, for everyone you're under, you should take a shot on the show. But then knowing you might only pass 2 times and you could die. And we don't want that to happen. I don't want to be liable for that.
That'd be a unique circumstance. Why did you die? We only threw 2 passes.
I'll be like, I don't know what happened. I never made a deal like that in my life. And then I'd have to go back to the tape.
delete.
It would just be bad for me, I think. So think about that. I think that should be a fair thing. Maybe I could give you 15, but that's kind of low. Maybe 15, though, might be a good starting point for this year. How many did you pass per game last year?
I don't have my numbers in front. I would say probably in that 10 to 12 range.
And if you get the 15, what if that gave you 1 or 2 extra wins a year? What would you think?
Well, then I guess we'd have more to talk about on our show. From a quantitative statistics,
you would just be happier, I think, on the show.
No,
I mean, it's been a rough couple of years for you. Like, Florida State's been losing, so not a lot of happy talk for you.
This is how Bill Belichick is formed.
I did get a comment. It's like, how is Matt so positive with Florida State every year? It's unbelievable.
I'm just positive with everything. I try to. I don't know.
I'm like sitting here. I'm always paranoid. We're expecting the worst. And then you're like, yeah, we're turning it around, baby. Turning it around. We might have lost to Jacksonville State, but we're right there. So we'll get back to this. You're going to keep it positive for media days, though. Hopefully you're looking good, not out of shape. Have you been working out?
I work out every day, my friend.
All right, I'm going to keep that in mind whenever I see it. Are you going to rock a mustache or anything cool?
No.
I think you should.
I'm back to Samson.
I can barely grow a beard. Like, this could be like 2 weeks or so. I haven't shaved in it. You can't barely see it on the video. That just means I got to get a better camera. More high def. I need like an 8K so you can really see my beard coming in.
Towards the end of the school year, I messaged my wife and I said, how do you feel about me just growing a mustache? And she just replied, no. Nothing else, just no. And I could feel the full fury of rage.
From you for being told no?
Yeah, no, just a Tom Selleck.
I don't think you could pull that off, though. I think it would be a little thinner, right? He probably uses some type of enhancement there, I would think.
Some people just have it.
Some people, like, you've seen the commercials, it's a gel, they just shave or they just comb it in. Or is that to dye it? I don't know, actually.
They're just gluing hair to their face. See, you could have a robust beard.
What would you do if you saw him, out on a set and he walked off and just pulled off a fake mustache and you were like, what the hell? He wears a fake mustache?
I just think...
Would that rock your world?
No.
Hey, I don't know. Because not that many guys grow a mustache, so... And then you're coaching, like, how does it look with your headset on? I think you need to take that into account, too. What? We can get a stylist to come on the show, maybe, and they can talk about your style on the sideline. You don't think that'd be a good idea either? Man, you're shooting down all my ideas this year.
No, that's
not a good way to start football season.
We can do it and just critique everything about my life and just be the depressing Southbound Sports Show.
I'll be like, well, the show's been going for 4 hours. Matt still owes us 4 shots. I don't know how long I can keep going. I'm falling asleep out here. Well, let's get into the football talk. Trevor Lawrence, he's not playing this week, though. Either is Etienne, So they're not as excited as me. Because you would think like that they'd want to play the games, right?
Well, they realized that it wasn't an FCS team that they were playing this week.
But looking at their history, you would think that he'd want the reps, right? At least 1, maybe 2. But don't they have to play 3 games though too? Because then I'm on their side of. I complained about it last year. Do they have to play an extra game now? Because they would have week 1, they have a game. Preseason week 2, they have. Did they not have a game? No, they do. They play the Steelers. And then week 3, let's see here. Because I think they're getting ripped off, right? Yeah, then they play Atlanta. So I understand. I hate the Hall of Fame weekend. I don't understand why it just doesn't count for preseason week 1. Right?
Yeah.
It's almost like they're taking the narrative around bowl games, like why ESPN needs to pay for these bowl games. Not because ESPN's getting like the commercial money and they're making money off it. ESPN tries to spin it and be like, your team can get extra practices. And it's like, are those guys going to be here next year? Well, not really, but some of the younger guys might get playing time. How many bowl games do you see the starters get pulled and they're like, all right, second stringers, get out there, get some experience? Like, none. Unless it's an absolute blowout. It's not like they have a thing where these younger guys are all playing in the bowl game. And even if they do, then the coach is like, well, your team lost out there. That really sucks. Your bowl record's 0-6. And he's like, I'm just using it for experience. And they're like, that's not the point of these. You're supposed to win. Then you're supposed to get the mayo bath on you. So I'm thinking that this is just dumb. I don't understand why 2 teams have to take extra hits every year. I said it last year with the Steelers doing it. Like, why not just wait? It's a Thursday night game, right? Why not just have it be next week, like next Thursday, and have it kick off with everything? And then that's just the first week 1, or heck, even just do it like on Sunday. Do the Hall of Fame stuff. I don't know why they do it on a Thursday. Like, what are they up against on Sunday? Like, I'm not sitting around like, I can't wait for Sunday TV. Like, just do it on Sunday like a normal time. Do it like at 7:30 p.m. or something, and then just have that be week 1, I really don't get it. I'm surprised the Players Association agreed to it. Because, like, I could see Jacksonville. Weren't they awful last year? Wasn't that the Urban Meyer year where he can kick anyone he wants?
Yeah, he was, like, kicking the kicker.
Yeah. Funny. Great stuff. Did you have that in your notes of things to say to your players?
Of things to do our special teams. Just start kicking people.
Because that could be in your playbook, like things that you learn. Like, I guess it's fair to say Urban Meyer, isn't he hired back at TV station? No, he was at Ohio State. What's he even doing now? Is he in charge of their NILs?
He just do whatever he wants.
I did see, did we talk about this last week randomly? So Urban Meyer was doing like NIL stuff with Ohio State. So Ryan Day said that they needed, was it $13 million or something to pay for their recruiting class? And he's like, boosters, we really need this money. And then they asked Harbaugh about it, and he's like, well, I think our boosters could probably at least double that. Like, nonchalantly. I'm like, yeah, but make it happen. Don't just say, like, we probably could, or we could do that. We could double it. Like, make it happen and then show them up. That'd be funny. Right? Shoot the money cannon. Don't pretend like you have it. Who's the other guy that's going to the broadcasting booth now? Crap, what coach was it? They're paying big bucks to have another coach come in. It slipped my mind now. Maybe I'll remember whenever the game's start and we'll talk about it. But what are your thoughts going into this Hall of Fame game? Are you excited? Are you going to watch it?
I probably will.
It's on NBC. I had to double check because I would hate for it to be on some weird NFL net streaming thing that I have to pay $5 for and I wouldn't do.
Well, it is the future Hall of Famer Devontae Adams playing, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Jags playing the Raiders.
Well, that's the point I was making before I lost my train of thought when I talked about Urban Meyer for some reason. Like, Jacksonville was awful, but Las Vegas was actually decent, right? Were they in the playoffs?
Yeah, they knocked the Chargers out.
So my thought is, if you're going to play this extra game, have it be the worst two teams, right? Because that way you can give them the same line of bullshit like I was talking about, where, hey, your team sucked last year. Now you get the extra practices, you get the extra game to try to get better. Throwing Las Vegas in there is kind of like, hey, yeah, you guys had a great season, and we really hope that more of your guys get injured, so you don't have as good of one next year by taking extra hits, because we're giving you the extra regular season game, and now you have this one. By putting the two worst teams in there, and the teams that are younger, or maybe you do the two youngest teams. I don't think the Raiders are the youngest team, but like that's what I want to see. Just some logic behind it. So you're not just picking like the Steelers, Cowboys, awesome, yeah. Why'd you pick them? Because it was their time, baby. It's like now it's Jacksonville, Las Vegas time. Like just pick the worst two, and if it's the same team every year, then who cares? It'll be like their Thanksgiving game, like their Lions Bowl or whatever. That's my thought on it. I'll be watching. I don't know. I'm excited about football being back. Like I said, just having it on and something that we can talk about. I wonder how much it's going to be like playing wise. If we're going to see any of those guys, like is Adams even going to play? You would think that he would, but I don't know.
I'm sure they'll get him at least a series, just something.
You don't have to, though, because like I said, you're playing an extra game. So this game could be just you putting in your backups and running with it and just seeing what you got depth-wise. And that's why I said, like, I wouldn't be against it if you took the two worst teams and had them play every year. I don't know if I'd be bragging about it being a Hall of Fame game, though. But at least there would be a reasoning behind the matchup. That's all I want. You have anything else for the Hall of Fame game?
No, it'll be good to have football back in action.
Some other football news: Deshaun Watson getting a 6-game suspension. They said it lines up with like Ezekiel Elliott and someone else that had no charges brought against him. So I do like how they're laying it out so that it's nice and fair. Let's see what happens with that. Because I don't think all the court cases have been settled, right?
Well, 20 of the 24, I think.
There's still a couple. And, I mean, if they keep stringing them out and nothing happens, like, if you're the NFL, you have to let the guy play. But, like, I wonder if that will change, like, if something does happen in, like, September or October when he's coming back. Like, what's going to be the point of that, But now you kind of bailed out the Browns where they were looking about making another move. And I just don't think the NFL wanted to have such a big scandal of someone signing in. Now the Browns are kind of locked in, right? So, like, why would you go after Jimmy G or something? I just don't know, like, what you would do. Like, Garoppolo's at practice. The 49ers have, like, no plan for him. And they're like, we're going to stay patient. John Lynch says, we're going to stay patient? Like, we don't know what's going to happen. And so I wonder, like, if the season goes and they're playing Trey Lance and Deshaun Watson, something happens, like, is it just the de facto, here's the Browns Jimmy G trade, Because, like, what else would they do? Trade for one of the Panthers quarterbacks?
Well, no, but I think they may have moved on in terms of, like, not starting Jimmy G. But here's the thing: starting Trey Lance doesn't guarantee that he's gonna stay healthy the whole year
or be good.
If he starts scrambling, if he's struggling, if he does any of those things, I think he has a high potential to have a good season. With it seemed like the early notice of, hey, you're going to be the guy, that he has this camp to get those reps with the first team and have that extra time knowing to prepare that he's going to be there, that he may do well, but if he's scrambling, if they have him on a lot of those design boots and things like that, that if he takes a shot, it's good to have a solid backup in place. There's nothing wrong with just holding on to Jimmy G, because if they trade him out, then what do you do if he gets hurt? Then you're royally screwed.
And that's true. But I think at some point, even if you're struggling a bit, you have to either say like, yo, time for you to go and we're going to have to get rid of you, or we're going to stick with you. Like having the Jimmy G there just to kind of like hang over him is such a bad, weird twist, right? I mean, I just don't understand it. And it's not like he was like the guy. Like, could you, like, if it would have been like if the Eagles kept Foles and Wentz on the roster after Foles had won a Super Bowl, except Garoppolo's the guy. So, like, they like that guy was a starter. And they're like, yeah, but this other younger guy's better than you, even though we don't know. You know, we know you took us to the Super Bowl. You know, you played well last year in the playoffs and stuff, but we still don't like you. And we've never liked you. That's like the vibe I get. So it's going to be like, I mean, can you remember when you guys had like Jeff Garcia and like all these other random quarterbacks that like weren't getting it done? Like, show some respect to Jimmy G. That's all I'm going to say. Maybe the Steelers could make a move, though, because I'm still not sold on Trubisky. And I think it's going to be a weird year for them. But we'll see what happens. That's why I want to see preseason start, and I want to see how some of these guys look. Like, you come out hot in the first couple of weeks of the season. Let's see what happens. What was the other big move I had for the NFL? Oh, the Dolphins, man. Did you see that they sanctioned the owner for that Tom Brady tampering stuff? They're losing 2 first-round picks, I think. 2023 and 2024. So that's like a major fine. I don't even remember if anyone else has ever been hit like that, right? Because even with the Patriots stuff, did they ever get that? That was like unprecedented violations, right?
I don't think it was from the Tom Brady scandal. It was from the Bill Belichick scandal, where
the Patriots one.
Yes.
When I'm talking about the Dolphins, this penalization is from that Tom Brady thing when they tried to recruit him on the boat. That's what their thing is from. So they did a 6-month investigation, or I guess it said 6 months after Brian Flores alleged them of tanking. And so they snuck in there that they weren't guilty of tanking. But they did say that Tom Brady was on the boat. And so they said that they charged the Dolphins with applying pressure to improperly recruit Tom Brady. Right? So it's kind of like the anti-tampering. Because Tom Brady was affiliated with the Bucs, he like shouldn't have been there hanging out even though he was friends with them or whatever. And they also found that they did speak to Sean Payton's agent before he resigned as the Saints coach. So that's what the 2 first-round picks were. But they didn't say anything about them tanking, right? Which I thought was like the main thing. Didn't they tell Flores like that he should tank?
Yeah. But I thought like the thing that kicked it all off was the fact that Belichick congratulated Brian Daboll for getting the job at Buffalo and not, or he sent the message to Flores and not Daboll for getting the job.
Yeah. Did anything ever happen with that?
Yeah, that's what I thought you were talking about. I saw that it was announced. Now I'm having trouble finding it.
Yeah, I didn't see anything on that one. This was the Stephen Ross. I only know because he's Michigan's biggest donor. He's the Dolphins owner. So like he knew Tom Brady from when he played at Michigan, right? So like being like, yo, you can come onto my boat, and then they're like, no, you were there, dog. We got to write that down. You made Brian Flores uncomfortable, and then like reaching out for Sean Payton, I understand. Like, that's cool. But there's nothing for tampering for Tom Brady or Sean Payton. Like, they're really just attacking the Dolphins now. I guess they lost the first and a third round, so it must be the first round. I don't understand why they just don't... Why write, like, 18 paragraphs instead of just saying what the penalties are? Like, this ESPN article is such bullshit. It's not even in order. So they lost... Oh, they already had 2 picks next year, so not even that big of a deal. They made it seem like there was like their main first round pick. So they lost one of them and a third round pick in 2024. That made it read like they lost 2 first rounds, but they had 2 first rounds next year. They're only losing one of them. So not that big of a deal. I mean, first round is kind of high, and who knows what they traded for it. Probably that was, I don't even know what they would have had all those picks for. But now they're saying that Ross can't be present at the team's facility, and he can't represent the team
until October.
Yeah. You know what he could probably do, though? He should match that Ohio State, like, double R NIL thing while he has free time on his hands. That should be good for Michigan, right? He's probably bored. So maybe that'll work out. That'd be funny. If he's, like, at Michigan's opening game and, like, at practice, and he's, like, signing all these big-time deals, and then our recruiting class, like, shows up, that'd be awesome. Because there's rumors of UCLA doing that, where they think that now that they're in the Big Ten and they got that money settlement from Under Armour, because Under Armour, like, their stock tanked or whatever, and they had signed that big deal with, I think it was Under Armour, with UCLA. Remember, it was like the biggest apparel deal of all time at the time. It was a couple years ago. We talked about it, but of course they couldn't pay it, so they just weren't paying it. So UCLA like sued them. And so they reached a settlement amount. So now they're going to use that money to pay off the sports that were broke. And then when they go to the Big Ten, they'll be like ready to go. So now they're like firing up their NIL and stuff. So it's like, must be good to be a UCLA fan right now. They're like getting all their ducks in a row. I mean, they still have Chip Kelly. Could you imagine with Chip Kelly? I mean, he's not a bad coach if they actually recruit well for him. And then the Pac-12 guy came out and was like, oh, yeah, I bet UCLA and USC is going to regret this move of leaving the Pac-12. I'm like, buddy, it's already paying off for them. Can't you hear them bragging about their money and stuff now? And how UCLA has a plan where they might end up with the first, like a top 10 recruiting class for the first time in a long time. Like it has to kill Oregon. But that's a little bit off topic based on this Dolphin story. I don't know what's even next. They're still looking into the other lawsuits, which is a thing that we're talking about with you, with Belichick. I don't see anything on Belichick in here. So that'll be the thing. I remember that happening, but I mentioned Belichick because I thought that, like, Deflategate, or not Deflategate, what was Spygate? Like, what was their penalties for that? That would have been the only, like, thing where people have lost a bunch of draft picks, right? Or maybe Bountygate, right? That didn't even hurt them, though, because the Saints never really fell off.
Did anything ever happen to Robert Kraft for his issues, too?
I don't know. His were like, maybe he got put out like Stephen Ross, but he's still around the team, right? He still owns them and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. That just seems like... It seems weird, but I'm assuming that this came about because of the lawsuits, right? From Flores. There's not really a lawsuit against Robert Kraft. He was just, like, doing something illegal, right? Like, what was the Colts guy? Wasn't he, like, driving drunk? And he had, like, a legal issue? They mentioned it in the story here where he wasn't allowed. So the same thing that he had, like, no contact with the NFL, is the same thing they gave to Ross. Was it Irsay? I think it was. So we'll see. We'll see if anything more comes of it, because, I mean, there's still other investigations going on. That's just the NFL's first ruling on it. Did you have anything else on the NFL before we move on?
No.
All right, our next thing is kind of a little bit connected to the NFL. They released the most valuable sports teams. So they usually do this. I remember them doing it like in ESPN, the magazine, like 20 years ago. And I noticed that there's been a gigantic jump, right? And it makes you wonder, like, why are the Cowboys, like, going up so much in value? Jerry Jones is up 1,934%, right? They put him ahead of the Yankees. And in the past, typically the Yankees had been, like, number one or near number one, followed by, like, all the NFL teams. And I also noticed that NBA teams like Golden State and the Lakers were really high on the list. And I was kind of like shocked by that because they don't get enough viewers, right? And I was thinking, like, did the deal with China pay off? No. What they started to put in these team values, they're adding in real estate ownings that these teams own. And it made me think, like, why are these teams owning real estate things? Don't they take taxpayer money to pay for their stadiums and this development anyway? So why is a team able to take taxpayer money, pay for a stadium, get development, get all their restaurants or whatever down there, their parking lots, they're making all money off that, taxpayer funded partially, because they do it like that. And then what, the owner then just takes all the money and value from that? That's insane. Like, that's honestly insane that they can't have a thing where it's like, well, the public owns this much then, and the government's going to get this much taxes from it. And I know that they do collect taxes on some of that stuff, but just the value of it to be like Jerry Jones saying that he's not willing to sell, but he thinks if he did put it on the market, he could get $10 billion for the Cowboys. And a lot of that is because of Jerry World and all their investments around that area. But it's like, was that his own money? Like, no. I don't think it was, right? So that's insane to me that they can go ahead and flip it. And then they say that these sports teams are just like so valuable. Where, yeah, I get it in terms of streaming. You have all these people watching and like the name brand and like the branded stuff. But even in terms of viewers like around the world, you still have soccer teams pulling in a ton of cash. And then NFL is so far above the other sports that, like, if it wasn't for just the value of like the Yankees and like how historic they've been, I really don't think that any of them would even come close to an NFL team. Right? They had some of like the lower NFL teams like the Lions and them much lower on the list. And it's like they get so many more viewers that if they sold and even just moved locations, like if the Lions went and moved to London and became the London Lions, do you not think that their value would just go through the roof? People already watch the NFL, right? So I don't understand how they come up with some of the values based on, it's not on TV viewership, that's for sure. Because we talked about it where almost all of the top viewed TV shows are NFL games, right? Cowboys aren't playing in all of them. Like some of them are like the Bengals and the Jets are pulling in 5 times the amount of viewership that like an NBA game gets. So you can't tell me that their values are more than the NBA. Now, if you're going to say, well, the Lakers, they're the big time, and maybe the Celtics and the Knicks, like, okay, I get the big couple teams maybe mixed in with the NFL teams, but overall, like Golden State's nowhere near what some of the NFL franchises are. Maybe because they have some of like the San Francisco development type area stuff. But outside of like this run with Steph Curry, people didn't even know who they were 10 years ago. Not enough to make them sell. If that team falls off the map, are they going to have the viewership of the Lakers? Probably not. Probably nowhere near it. Same with like compared to the Celtics or whatever. Like Celtics have been such a high brand, they're never really going to fall off. Same with the Yankees. Doesn't matter if the Yankees suck. They're still New York's team. Everybody in the world knows who they are. So I was kind of, normally this stuff kind of interests me, but this year it's kind of like, why? You hear about like inflation and all this stuff and how the government's running out of money, and it's like, well, how are you just giving money away to these team owners then? It makes zero sense to me. But I didn't know if you had any thoughts on it.
Well, I think like just thinking of the way that the teams use their facilities, I think changes the way it's perceived, because I want to say, like, even from the school side, if you're funding it just from your school funds, then the school they can restrict who has access to the property. But like with some of the bigger schools in our area, because they're getting money from the city to help fund their stadium projects, you can go there like in the evenings and like walk on their track or do different stuff, as long as like the athletic teams aren't practicing. So like it makes it more available to the public, if you're taking funds from other places.
That's interesting. I wonder, could you like just have your own like football game? You start selling tickets like randomly. Do you think that would be okay?
I would say that would probably be a separate issue, and that would be a hard no, because I'm sure it would be like it wouldn't fall under the insurance of the school because it wouldn't be a school sanctioned event.
I think you do flag football. You don't really need insurance for that.
Oh yeah, and then blow your knee out or get a concussion running a post and sue the school and sue the league and sue everyone.
You just have them sign a waiver, Matt. I mean, people go on television shows and get hurt all the time, probably.
And this is something in a COVID era that I learned to be true. You, as a citizen, cannot sign your rights away. So that waiver does not really matter.
Has that been challenged?
Yes. I learned this. Because though you can say, "Oh, I don't care," and then try to sue, and the school would be liable for it. So that's why with a lot of these, like every year we go with the latest round of COVID infections, and schools are so fast to shut down. That's why, because they don't want to get their pantsuit off.
But what if like a kid signed a waiver to be in a photo and then they sued the school for like a copyright of that? Would they be able to get it?
I don't know all the ins and outs of that. I'm just simply saying, like, you can't, just for signing a waiver, like, a lot of times that does nothing for you.
Well, we'll have to see. Maybe do like a break dance off. A dance thing instead.
What the hell's wrong with you?
What? You're not using the public field. Like, they barely play any games on it. So if they're playing a stadium, what else would they be using it for? I'm just trying to come up with ideas that actually make it useful, right?
Monster
you could
truck
have a
rallies.
They don't do a monster truck rally at a high school football field. Are you kidding me? The fields look like garbage after 9 games. You really think they're going to let monster trucks drive around on it?
Well, then exactly. What the hell? Some of them look like they held monster truck rallies.
You should moonlight. I think that should be the coach's job, where you're also the field crew. I'll write a letter.
Like Jackie Moon.
Yeah, just do everything, coach. That way, if you need to slow their team down, you let the grass grow a little bit higher. If you need to show off your speed, you cut it real low, right? Strategy. That's a thing that they used to do.
I think there's still teams that do it, to be quite honest.
Yeah, see? Perfect. Get coach in on that. I think that'd be a great idea. Anything else, Jeff, for the NFL?
No.
All right, let's get into Major League Baseball, man. The trade deadline. One of the busiest I remember. The main deal. Is that a Padres song, bro? I don't understand what that horn's supposed to be. So
no, that was the disappointment horn.
For what, the Pirates? Or Soto? Soto went to the Padres, man. And I was kind of worried that he would go to the Mets. Because people were like, hey, don't expect Soto to go to the Mets after this series. And I'm like, I hope he doesn't go there at all. Right? Like, why would you trade him in division? That's just idiotic. And I hate the Mets. And so him going to the Padres, like, I really don't care. Like, is anyone watching the Padres? Go back to the team values and stuff. Is that going to move the needle, him being there? Probably not. I mean, everyone's like, well, the Padres might be the favorite now. It's like, you got one guy. When has one guy won a championship? If that were true, my man Barry Bonds would have a couple under his belt. Right? Teams weren't even pitching to him. They were so afraid of Barry Bonds. Soto's not at that level. So, generational hitter, he's still young. I want to see how it plays out. I'm glad that they made the move, and I'll say keep him out west. Maybe that will take some spark away from the Dodgers. It seems to be on like a run of teams, but I was actually surprised. I've been following it. Typically, some of the trade deadlines are just the Pirates getting rid of guys. Didn't they get rid of one of their pitchers to the Cardinals? So it's like, oh, that's typical Pirates. Let's dump all our salary. I was impressed with the Braves making a ton of moves that they obviously learned from last year. Like, hey, if you go ahead and swing this and try to make another run, like that might pay off. I read that they made an extra $100 million based on that World Series championship, just in terms of like press and like all this other stuff that happened. And I'm like, this works out perfect. I knew we talked about Freddie Freeman's deal. I was told by another fellow Braves fan that I had it backwards, that the deal the Braves offered him was only for 5 years, but that he would have made more money per year with the Braves. It would have just been one less year. And so he ended up getting like an extra $22 million from the Dodgers. But at that point, like his offers back to the Braves were like way more than what the Dodgers had offered. But I was like, all right, well, what did you want to do? Did you want to stay with the Braves? Like, don't play that you wanted to stay with the Braves when they had a very good offer for you that wasn't anywhere below like what you were talking about. You were making more money per year with the Braves. And who knows, maybe they would have extended you anyway for the same amount. The Dodgers backloaded him. I don't know how the Major League Baseball deals work, but if it's backloaded like that, can't they just cut him and not pay it? That's kind of how the NFL works, right? You only get a certain amount guaranteed. I don't know how the new salary cap stuff works with baseball, but it'd be weird if he signed where 50, I think it was like 50 something million was coming like later in the contract, or if he signed a deal with the Dodgers that just ends up being worse over time. I think we'll look back on that deal and be like, Freddie Freeman, what the hell were you doing? Now the Braves offered, I only brought that up because they offered a crazy deal to, who did they sign? Damn it, I had it mixed up. I didn't want to have it wrong. They made some deals, like they got Grossman, the outfielder, another pitcher, Odorizzi, I hope I said that right, and then they got closer from the Angels, just to kind of go ahead and pull out their trade deadlines. But then they also signed, let's see if I can get it up. They also signed their third baseman, Austin Riley, to, what was it, a 10-year contract, man, for $212 million. That's insane. It's the most lucrative deal in team history. So he's 25, so they signed him basically through till he's 35. I just wanted to make sure I had it right. But crazy. So maybe it was just because the Braves were making bigger moves, but I thought that this trade deadline with the Braves and Soto was just one of the busier ones that I've seen recently.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I was just disappointed because St. Louis is in a spot where they needed to upgrade pitching. They were in the running for Soto. And once again, like the last couple of years, it was they picked up a pitcher from the Pirates of all people.
Yeah.
And that was it. Like, come on, guys.
They did that early too. That was like the other day, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I thought they picked him up purely as another trading piece so that they could load up. But at the same time, I understand they were probably asking for a pile of picks in return or other collateral. That how much do you give up for one guy?
That's what I was wondering here, because like they're getting rid of their entire, I don't want to say their entire minor league season or team for Soto, but getting rid of a ton of guys, and it's like, all right, here we go. You have the numbers to be a Hall of Famer. I think he's only behind Ted Williams with on base percentage, right now through like the beginning of his career. And so, okay, if that's going to be the guy, but let's get him. Like I said, you also need younger guys coming up if you want it to be a long-term thing, right? I feel like the way baseball's been going is you have a couple of teams that make like a couple multi-year runs, like the Astros, the Dodgers, and then they kind of have to recycle through, where the Braves right now are making moves. I'm hoping that they can turn it into a 3 or 4 year run. I don't know if the Padres are there. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but they still have to battle. The new playoff thing is going to be interesting for me. right? Because aren't they taking 6 teams now? So if you were looking at it, we were really close to having the Braves play, or not the Braves. I guess it would have been, I don't know how they're going to do it. Is it going to be the division leader? Like, would it be the Brewers playing the Cardinals? Because they're only 1 game behind the Phillies for that last spot right now. The Cards are. And the Phillies made a couple moves too. They added a couple of guys. And that's been another move that I've been watching because the East has been really competitive this year. I think the only team that really hasn't been doing anything is the Marlins and I guess the Nationals. But the Marlins are so far out of it that they're not making anything. So you have the 3 teams that are going to be battling, and they're going to keep getting better. But how's that going to work? I don't understand. I don't know if the division champ gets that top seed or not. Because only the top 2 get the bye, which would right now be the Mets and the Dodgers. So then would it be Brewers 1, Braves 2, and then what would it be? Padres 3, and the Phillies 4, maybe? So the Phillies would play the Brewers and the Braves would play the Padres, I think, in a best of 3, which I do like better than the 1 game. I'm so glad they got away from that. Because like you hate watching your team play and then what, a pitcher has a bad outing and you get no chance at redemption? Like a best of 3, at least in like college baseball, like it's at least interesting. And most of the time you're either going to get a 2-1 win or something like that compared to a sweep. But we'll see how it plays out. I don't know. I'm kind of excited. Football's back. Baseball's getting into the thick of it. I almost would like if they just cut off some of the games, right? I know they're afraid of doing it for like the record books, but what if you just got rid of spring training? Or you significantly shorted spring training, right? And tried to do more of like hey, we're going to do our 162 games, but we're starting with a bunch of neutral site games for like spring training that count. And then we're going to have a 16-team playoff, right? With no buys. And you do a 3-round series, the first round like they're doing now. And you're just adding 2 more teams in instead. I think I would like that better. You do a 3, then a 5, then a 7, and then the World Series would be a 7. And you're still going to end in October because you're moving things up. Like, I think I would like to see that. Does spring training really matter? No. Do people go there to get autographs? Yes. Does that matter? No. Who cares? So let's go ahead and take the regular season and move it up. That's what I would like to see, I think. Even if you have to do a neutral site or move all the northern teams to the south for the opening of the year. They don't have that many southern teams, though. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I think it's fine the way it is. Just let it go. Don't change anything.
Yeah, but they're trying to get more interest, right? So right now the Cardinals have a winning record. They're going to be left out. And yeah, you're going to have a stinker where you're going to have like the Giants with the losing record get in. But who cares? What's the difference between having a team take a bye where they might get cold, because they haven't been playing? If they're so much better as the 1 seed, let them play the crappy 8 seed. It could be like basketball where the 8 seed never wins. And it could be like football where the 8 seed wins 20% of the time or something, We don't know. Like, I want to see what happens if they expand it. Because you can't tell me, oh, well, we're going to expand it a little bit. Oh, people are only watching the playoffs. It's like, yeah, just give me more playoffs. Right? If you're not going to let all the teams do like a gigantic tournament, make it 16, like the other sports leagues. Push the early games up. And then that way you give them, by moving it up and getting rid of some of the spring training or whatever. Because I honestly think that they're only keeping the games at 162 for record book purposes, which I understand. It's been hundreds of years, right? Since I've been doing baseball. So if you want to keep the record books the same, just get rid of spring training. Or significantly shorten it, right? Same with like NFL's doing it. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the NFL just eventually, like in 20 years, has 1 preseason game and the rest of regular season, because they know that that's where you make your money. Baseball needs viewers. Make it playoff baseball. I mean, right now, you could be starting, and this is super early, but like, what if right now, like, we were starting baseball playoffs in August? Like, I would be watching. You have nothing on right now besides preseason football, right? So why wouldn't I have a preseason football game on with a postseason baseball game? Why hurt your sport by putting it in the middle of college football and NFL regular season? It just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense. But I'm not the baseball guy making the TV deals or whatever. You have anything else for baseball?
No.
Getting into the final bell stuff, just checking in on college football. I know this week, not a lot of big news. The Notre Dame thing, we talked about them asking for $75 million from NBC. There really hasn't been any news on that. Some Notre Dame fans were crunching the numbers and saying that would get them close to $100 million if they get their college football bowl playoffs or whatever. So, like, if they make a New Year's Six game, not New York. New Year's Six game, they would get like close to the $100 million. But is Independence worth that gamble? Right? Yeah, they can cherry pick their schedule, but I have a hard time believing that if the Big Ten and the SEC keep expanding, that the ACC is going to keep letting Notre Dame just take their bowl payouts, right? I know.
Yeah.
Is that deal locked into 36 though? Because like there might be nothing they can do about that. But like that, I mean that's what makes the ACC deal even worse. Is it's like, hey, Notre Dame's going to get more money than you, and they're going to take your bowl money away from you guys. So while all the other conferences are getting their bowl payouts, the ACC is giving some of theirs away to Notre Dame. And it's just infuriating to me. Like, I'm not even an ACC fan, but like that would just drive me nuts. Like, why is my team competing with my rivals in another conference where they're getting their full bowl payout and we're getting just a chunk of it because Notre Dame stole our bid? Because like the last couple of years, they've been stealing ACC bids in big time bowl games.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, why is the ACC making so much less money? It's like, that's why. That's honestly the reason why. That's why the Big East died. The Big East, I was looking back through the history, like Pitt and West Virginia, like they were actually competing. I think most of the Big East teams that left the Big East have been doing worse. Except for Syracuse. I think I looked at the numbers. Only Syracuse has made an increase in wins since leaving, which is kind of shocking. But, I mean, I guess aren't they in the easier ACC division now? The Coastal? Or no, are they in the hard one? If they're in the hard one, that's even more surprising.
I don't even know.
You should know. It'd be your division. Are they in Florida State's division? Or are they in?
I just think they're just independent. They're just like they're in there, but they're not actually in.
So you forget Syracuse exists. They're like the Boston College, would be the other one. But I think Syracuse and Boston College, they might be both in.
Yeah, I think they're both
Florida
in the
State.
Atlantic.
Yeah, so they're even in the worst. I don't even the worst scenario for them. So I don't know how they got a better record. Maybe the ACC is worse than or easier than the Big East. Who knows? Even though it's half Big East teams, so you really can't say. They just cherry picked the best Big East teams and made a conference. The only team that's not there is West Virginia. But we're in a crazy part where, like I had said, UCLA's bragging about how much money they're making now and how that's going to affect their recruiting and how they think they can land a top 10 class. Meanwhile, the Big Ten supposedly reached out to Minnesota, which if you're in Minnesota, why would you even think of leaving the Big Ten? I doubt that they even responded. Because, like, why would you go to another conference where even if they said, like, hey, you're never going to win the Big Ten, you should come to the Big 12 where you could win the conference. And you're Minnesota, but then you have to think, like, what if we don't? Like, what if we don't win? Then we're getting paid less to keep losing? Like, that's not a gamble I'd want to take, right? It's not like they're trying to lure away a team that's like a team that's just crushing every year and winning the conference they're in, like Boise State or something. And they're like, hey, you can come here and make a little bit more money. It's like, no, you're Minnesota. You're going to get $100 million. Everyone's bragging about it. And they're like, you know what? We don't want that much. And the Big Ten is going to be like, okay, we're definitely going to be making more money now. And I don't think people keep saying, oh, the Big Ten's going to start pushing out their weaker schools. But I'm telling you, they don't want to do that because then their big name schools lose the cupcake wins. Until the playoffs expand and are set with automatic bids, no conference wants to get rid of their cupcakes. They just don't. Right? Is SEC talking about getting rid of Vanderbilt? No. They're talking about how their academics bring up the whole conference. Are they trying to push out what other teams are bad in that conference? Like a South Carolina to bring in Clemson? No. Why would they do that? Florida can beat up on South Carolina. Georgia can beat South Carolina most years. Why would they want to bring in Clemson and maybe have another loss on their schedule? I wouldn't. Would you?
No.
I mean, like, you can schedule Clemson. Like, Clemson's been complaining that Georgia hasn't been playing them. But if you're Georgia, why would you want to? Like, you just won the national championship. I know Clemson had a few national championships. But, like, Georgia also has to play Georgia Tech. Not the best team, but that also, I would imagine, helps with recruiting. And it's in there. If they cut the Georgia Tech game and added Clemson, great. That would be a great game, right? But again, why would you go with, like, a 50-50 toss-up game? It just doesn't make sense to me. Like, Notre Dame has been actively doing the same thing where they're telling teams like Michigan, like, hey, we're not going to play you. We can't have another 50-50 game. We'd much rather play Wake Forest or someone else. And I know Wake Forest was good last year, but that's kind of like what Notre Dame's saying. Like, we got to play Boston College, bro. Like, we really don't want to play another marquee game. We already got USC, and we got one of the top ACC schools, probably Clemson or Florida State or someone. But we just really can't be playing all these games. But Purdue, we're going to keep them on the schedule, though. We usually beat them. Like, that's a calculated move by them. Because otherwise, if it was all about making money for NBC, wouldn't they want the Michigan game? That's what people are underestimating. I saw Feinbaum went viral yesterday or today about his comments. Like, what is NBC getting that's worth $75 million? Notre Dame has cut most of their big rivalry games, right? The Michigan game, where Michigan's averaging like whatever we talked about a couple weeks ago, where they have like they're averaging over 5 million people a game because they're one of the most viewed teams. Notre Dame said, nah, we don't want to play them anymore. Like, that would have to piss NBC off, where they're like, yeah, we got rid of them because we had to keep the Purdue game. And NBC looks at the numbers and they're like, well, your game against Purdue only got 2 million people watching that. Why would we pay you $75 million a year for maybe 2 games? Right?
Yeah.
Like, what games that are Notre Dame's schedule are must-watch TV? Let's bring up this year's schedule. Like, yearly, it's just a USC, right? And then whatever now, they got rid of most of their big rivalry games. Like I say, I don't want to talk shit on Navy, but like Navy's not a big draw for them. That's kind of just like whatever. So they play Ohio State this year. It's away, so that's going to be on the Big Ten. So actually, I'm just not even going to read the other ones. This is what NBC would be paying for. A game against Marshall, Cal. The BYU has a leprechaun thing on it. Does that mean it's in Ireland?
Yeah.
Then they play Stanford, UNLV, Clemson, and Boston College. There's only one top game, and that's Clemson. Right? If Clemson shows up this year and doesn't fall off because Venables left. If Clemson's like, what would they be, like 5-3 going into that game? 5-4? Like, is that even going to be a top game? Like, I want to see the numbers on these games because, like, Marshall, UNLV, those aren't big draws. Cal, the Big Ten would have asked Cal to join if they were getting big-time numbers. Same with Stanford. And then Boston College, too, it's like, yikes. Their away games are Ohio State, which is going to be the big money thing. If Ohio State kicks the shit out of them, then I don't see how anyone would really be excited about the rest of Notre Dame's schedule. They play North Carolina, Syracuse, Navy, and USC. Unfortunately, Ohio State and Clemson, and possibly USC, depending on how Lincoln Riley turns it around, are their potential for only 3 losses. The rest of their schedule is so bad that they could end up being easily 9-3 this year at worst. So, like, NBC, like, are you paying just for this inflated schedule? And then everyone keeps talking about how they keep losing BCS games, how it doesn't make sense, or New Year's Six, whatever they're calling them. it makes sense. They're not challenged throughout the year. They're losing the big time games they play. They get to the playoffs, they get killed. Or they get to the thing and they get killed. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me why NBC would want to pay for that. If they had a big time schedule with whatever other teams they play, like, that would be different to me, right? Like, your top games from the ACC is Clemson and South Carolina. Is that even worth it for the ACC? Like, to give a chunk of your bowl games? And Boston College, like, they only play one, or I guess Syracuse is on here too. So do they play four? Four ACC teams to give up the chunk of their bowl payouts? Insanity. It's insane to me. It's insane.
But unless they're looking at, and I think part of it too was thinking, well, it's an individual thing. Let Notre Dame into the conference so that when we get our rotation turn and they come, they're going to draw, and our school will get that extra revenue. Is the short-term thinking for that, not realizing now they're going to be pulling, potential bowl money away and everything else from the other schools.
And this is what I'm thinking, like, Notre Dame's asking NBC to package deal with the Big Ten, right? Which is only going to drive the Big Ten's value higher. Because if you're the Big Ten and they're saying that, hey, NBC calls and they're saying, hey, we want to pay like $10 million a year for a couple of games or whatever, and they're going to be like, yeah, but you're giving Notre Dame 75. Like, we're not doing that deal. Like, you need to pay us an extra 75. That's going to drive up the value of the Big Ten TV contract, right? Because they're not going to outbid Fox or ESPN for the top games. They're bidding for like these middle games between like Northwestern and Minnesota or something before Notre Dame comes on. But if Notre Dame keeps dropping their rivals, like, they're not playing Purdue in this schedule, they're not playing Michigan State, they're not playing Michigan, they're not playing Indiana or any of the local teams that they're playing. They're playing just a national schedule of soft. I mean, they're only playing Ohio State that's closest to them, right? I guess Marshall would be the second closest. That's not that close.
Yeah.
So I just don't understand, like, if you're looking at Notre Dame and you're a fan, like, if you're a season ticket holder, Matt, would you pay for that schedule?
I guess you'd have to if you want to go to the game.
Yeah, but if you let's say you're paying $1,000 seat donation and you're getting all this extra money to them, and the number one game, like, if I was a fan and I paid for this and I said, like, well, I'm going to go to the game, I'm going to tailgate the entire time, the only game I would be excited to see would be Clemson, right? Second tier would be, I probably wouldn't care to see Boston College. UNLV, Marshall would be like a game just because they were close to like Pennsylvania growing up and Randy Moss went there. That might be a game like you would take the family to because it would probably be cheap. And you're like, yeah, we'll go watch them play Marshall. Cal would be a maybe, and Stanford would be a maybe to me. I would probably sell the rest of them. Like, I would probably just go to Clemson and sell the rest and hopefully make it back. Maybe take whatever Cal or Stanford ticket that I went to. But it wouldn't be like a must-see, like, in comparison to like what happens. I just don't. It just, like, looking at that schedule and then comparing it to like another team that comes in, like, what would you pay to see? I don't know. Like, Michigan has Penn State at home, Michigan State at home, Nebraska at home, Illinois, Maryland, Connecticut, Hawaii, and Colorado State. They have a ton of games at home. But, like, out of those, I would honestly go to Penn State, Michigan State, and at least Nebraska. Like, there's at least 3 big-time games. Illinois would be my maybe. And then I'd probably, like, the Hawaii would be, like, the Marshall equivalent, the game that I would go see. Maryland, maybe, but that would be probably one I would sell. Like, same with the other ones. But you're still getting, like, 3 big-time, big-name schools. Like, Penn State, Michigan State, and Nebraska are all bigger than anyone on Notre Dame's home schedule besides, like, Clemson, right? So, yeah. Like, what are you paying for? Let's compare it with Florida State. And then I'll end on this. So Florida State's playing, let's see what they got. They got Duquesne at home, Is LSU, is that at home?
That's on the road.
This is neutral site. Oh, yeah. It's at the Superdome. I was wondering because it didn't say at. Oh, my God. This might even be worse. Well, they played Boston College, Wake Forest, Clemson, Georgia Tech, Louisiana, and Florida. I got to say with Florida and Clemson, I think they have the better schedule, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you got Boston College at both of them. I probably wouldn't go to it. Wake Forest would be one that I would probably say I'd go check that out. That would be the Cal equivalent, I think. But I would think Wake Forest is better than Cal anyway. They were just in the championship. And same with like Georgia Tech. Like that's an iffy game. They don't have a lower level team that would go see though. Maybe Duquesne, like for the same reason because they were close. But that's like an FCS. I mean, you can go and if they lose to them, that would be like a complete dumpster fire of a year. So you could say you were at that game. Isn't Duquesne the lower level?
Yes.
But like I said, if you're looking at just home schedules, comparing the teams we like to Notre Dame, it's like I gotta say I would rather have season tickets to Michigan or Florida State. You just get more games to go to. I don't understand. I mean, I guess they gave away the BYU game, which would probably be one that I would go see because it's in Ireland. But Florida State's playing LSU at a neutral site. So what's the difference? That's all I have. You have anything for the final bell?
No. Just check out southboundsports.com.
Yeah, check it out. Football starting, so we'll be back with some big time stuff coming up. I'm excited about it, and we'll see you next week.